Hey TikTok, welcome back to our after hours live recording. I know that some of you were wondering where we were. If you do sign up on our Substack, askdrvincent.com, you will never miss an episode. And hello to you too, Substack. We're now live on both, Stephen.
Fantastic. That's awesome. I like being live on both. At the same time would be good because then there's nobody misses out on anything.
Well, that is above my pay grade. I before we went on, I was making a joke, which is grounded in truth that I don't like this whole social media thing, or as Gary Vee said, it's actually not interest media. It's less about being social with your friends and family members or getting updates from people that you follow, but it's interest based. So if you're interested in certain things like AI, automotive,
Mm,
cars or motorbikes or stuff like that, you're
yeah.
being fed by algorithm the things that interest you basically. But what I was talking with Stephen was that sometimes I really just want you guys to just buy my product so I don't have to do this. This interests me very, very little. I wasn't even a consumer of social media, and now I have to be in front of you. And the only saving grace that I feel around this talking in front of camera or recording reels or sometimes dancing, I know, can you believe it? Is that I drew a lot of my experience as a lecturer, as a tutor, as an educator in the world of
Mm,
academia and parlay it into the social media because I do believe that there is a lot of misinformation and disinformation,
yeah.
especially around health and wellness. And I feel that if you don't show up, you don't have the you can't even complain about it if you're not showing up. I
But
feel that you have
you've
to
got to
take
have a
charge.
voice. Yeah,
You have
you've
to
got.
have a voice. You're
Yeah,
right.
yeah. Look, I think I have been on social media for a long time,
But
and
you are
I'm a
based in
fan.
you're best in based in technology. Your background is through and through technology. So you're probably an early
Yeah.
adapter.
I am an early adopter. I have an exceptionally old Amazon account. Even I've bought from Amazon since 1994.
When
If
it was
anyone
still
can believe
books.
that, it was just books at the time, books then CDs and all sorts of stuff. But I think that social media allows me to connect with people that I otherwise may not have connected to. Any of our listeners will remember me referencing friends that I have in New Hampshire who they produce maple syrup from the maple trees that they have growing on their acreage in New Hampshire. And there's no way that I would be able to be part of that or feel like I was part of that without social media. So I think it's a double-edged sword, Vincent.
Yeah, I'm not disputing that there's a lot of benefits to it and advantages to it. And as a matter of fact, it fits in so well to the topic that we are going to be discussing today,
It absolutely does.
which is entrepreneurship and how to turn your interest, your hobby, your passion into something that can actually be something that you do for a living. Because they
Yeah.
do say that if you do something that you enjoy and love for a living, then you don't have to work a day, which is absolutely BS because I live and
You
breathe
still
my
work hard?
passion. I live and breathe my passion. I probably in the top 0.01% when it comes to an academic who finished a PhD in the field that he or she is still working on today.
Mm.
And this is, I don't know, almost 15 years and counting. And I still live and breathe apples, phenolics, antioxidants, molecular nutrition. And don't get me wrong, I absolutely love every second of it. But I wouldn't go as far as saying that it's not work. It is hard work, even.
I think talking about entrepreneurs, startups, people who are building businesses, even, I think you can be an entrepreneur and not be just one person either. I think often really successful entrepreneurs have a group of people around them. And if you like, you mentioned last week that you were the face of Renovatio, and that's awesome. But there are a whole lot of other people who are behind you as well,
That is
who
correct.
are helping with that business.
That is correct.
And that's
And
a really key part of being an entrepreneur.
that is very, very true. And I truly cherish and appreciate the people and ecosystem around me,
Mm.
you included, Stephen,
Oh,
because
thank you.
I do believe that there are two things that are very true when it comes to running a business and having a successful career. Uh, as even not just a career, life in general. Number one is knowing what you know, and number two, knowing what you don't know.
Yes.
And I will add another one to it, even though I actually said two, is knowing when to ask for help. Because a lot of us, myself included,
Mm.
it took it took a concerted effort for me to change my mindset and paradigm when it comes to asking for help. Not because I was an arrogant person or I believe in myself so much that I didn't need any help. It's just because sometimes when you're so self-sufficient, and probably you can relate to this because you are also the
Mm.
firstborn in your family. So am I. And I think that there is a turning point that I had to change the way that I perceive and approach a problem in the way that I don't have to know the answer for everything at all time.
Mm.
Sometimes the answer to my problem is asking for help.
I think it's really hard to ask for help, and I'm so glad that you brought that up. I think that a lot of us, when we have this amazing idea, I suspect that almost every one of our listeners has got to a point at some time thinking, "Oh, I wish that was different." And then a smaller subsection of our listeners probably thought, "I wish that was different, and I wonder if I can change it." And it's actually an even smaller percentage again who take that first step. And that first step is often identifying who can help. So, who can help, I think, is really super critical.
And the willingness to ask for help, because I discovered this very, very early on after I moved here to
Mm.
Australia from Indonesia, is that I would say that living on my own allowed me that space to be humble and to know that I cannot be good at everything and to ask
Mm.
for help. And what I discovered, and this is very interesting, is that 99% of the time when they can, people will help.
Yeah,
People actually want to help. There is something in our humanity as well as a social being. There's something in our humanity that makes us feel good when we help someone, when we help others. And I think this design in our psychobiology should allow us to be more gracious to ourselves and more forgiving that,
yeah, yeah.
asking for help is not a sign of weakness. As a matter of fact, it is a sign of strength.
It is definitely a sign of strength. I think, though, that a lot of people get embarrassed or they're worried that they will be wrong. Or they're worried that the person that they're asking perhaps doesn't have the time or doesn't have the skills
I used
that you think.
I used to tell myself this, right? What if they say no? What if they say no?
Mm.
But then on the flip side, what if they say yes?
Exactly.
If you don't ask, the answer will 100% be a no. But if you ask, maybe it's 50-50. It could be yes, it could be no.
Hey, you could get a no, but you could get a no,
But
but go and talk to this person.
yes,
And talking about your idea and being passionate about it, I think is really important. The second thing that I'll add in there as well, and I tell all of my teams this, is always assume good intent. So when you say to somebody, "Can you help me?" and they say no, it's not that they don't like you.
yes, sometimes it really isn't personal.
It's not personal.
Most of the time, it's not personal.
Yeah. And so the follow-up question should be, okay, can you think of anyone who can help? Because some of the best business relationships that we've ever had are through chance meetings, through people that we know
I
that have
mean,
said, go and talk to this other person. That's
I,
an amazing way to build your network.
I believe in chance meeting. I believe in dumb luck because as much as I believe in being good, it's always be better to be lucky than be good. I mean,
Hmm.
in an ideal world, luck is 99%
Yeah.
preparation, 1% opportunity or chance, and I truly truly believe that. But I'm also humble enough to accept that sometimes there are things that are out of your control in the positive way. So, for example,
Mm.
you said something about your best uh, experiences or relationships or the foundation that you build into in business happen by chance.
Yeah.
And I mean, the very fact that I happen to chat up the two women who turned out to be the executives from one of the biggest home shopping channels in the US.
Mm.
I didn't know that. I didn't approach them. I didn't chat them up with an ulterior
You were
motive to
making
be.
conversation.
I was
Maybe
making a
not, maybe
conversation.
not chatting them up. Were you chatting them up really?
No, not really. I didn't even know who they were. I literally said that because they were making a comment about a brand, a cheap brand, Uglies, the Uglies, because they were made. These potato chips were made from upcycled potatoes.
Mm.
And because it was the brands were alphabetically ordered, so Vincent, our brand in the US, is V, and then Uglies is U.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't have to explain how alphabetical order works. What I'm trying to say is that they were passing my display and they were making a comment, "Oh, those are the Uglies." And I turned around and I said that, "Oh, please don't call me Uglies. I'm quite decent looking." But
Maybe you were chatting them up now.
I know
I get
maybe.
it now.
But you know what? Like, talk about having your head on the swivel, right? Because it was literally a swiveling moment. I was like, "Don't call me uglies." But those are the things that I truly, truly believe that you can be so good.
Mm.
You can be the best in your craft, in your industry. But I think from my experience, you need to be humble enough to accept that there are things that are out of your control.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So I can enter Powerball and I can choose numbers. I can control my destiny to a certain amount, but there's a lot of luck that's involved with me winning $30 million.
Uh, well, believe you me, if I ever win a lottery, actually, before we go into that, that's too deep and personal. Let me ask you this question, Stephen. If you if you win a Powerball this week,
Yeah,
would you still be doing this with me?
I would. And
Will you upgrade our studio?
I, I could upgrade our studio. That's not a bad idea.
Yeah,
Maybe
yeah.
some more air conditioning. It's pretty hot today.
There you go. We normally do have it. I forgot to turn it on today. Um,
But yes, I'd still come back and do the podcast. And I'm going to get groans from all of our listeners, I know. But I really enjoy having a conversation.
we do have air
Yeah,
conditioning in the studio,
that was
yes.
my subtle way of asking for it. We It is really good to have a structure. Now, every business person, anyone who's working knows that by putting in place a bit of structure really helps people get through their week and keep them focused and keep them on board. So even when I win my Powerball, which will be awesome because there are so many things that I want to spend it on, I will still be doing the podcast.
Notice when he said
Yeah.
even when I win. Uh,
Sometimes you got to,
you
make
have
your
to
own.
manifest it, right?
You've got to manifest it. Exactly right.
Okay, well, let's go back to the backbone of our podcast today. Speaking of structure,
Mm.
and the big question that I posed to you when we were chatting last night was that how, if someone comes up to you and asks you, how do you turn a hobby, a passion, an interest into something that makes money?
Yeah.
And uh, one of the examples that because I've never really studied business, so I learned a lot
Mm.
from reading someone's stories, from reading
Yep.
uh, people's experience and how they came to be doing whatever that they're doing. So I don't know exactly the details, and I purposely didn't want to do the research because I want it to be as authentic as possible today on
Mm.
camera. Um, so, do you know the history of liquid paper?
I don't. I
So
don't know that history.
it was actually started and founded by a secretary. So a secretary who made a mistake because back in the day you have to do
You're
typing,
manually typing.
manually
Yep.
typing, and she was actually, if my memory serves me right, she was fired or being reprimanded for making a mistake in an official form,
Mm.
and that actually inspired her to use and mix up a paint from nail polish.
Ah, that makes sense.
And
And with a little brush and everything,
exactly,
it was
because
ready
back
to
in the day,
go.
liquid paper now there is a lot more format and delivery of of this liquid paper, but back in the day it was with the little
Mm.
brush, just like nail polish would have. And from then on, she made it. All of the other secretaries wanted it because obviously that's life changing, and
Yep.
and
Yep.
it saves a lot of time instead of having to retype the entire page. Um, and then she saw the opportunity of commercializing this little invention of hers by selling it to the secretaries, and that's how liquid paper came to be.
Look, I love that story, Vincent, because first of all, there are probably 4 or 5 things that everyone who is starting a business or wants to be an entrepreneur, needs to think about, and you've summed up pretty much all of them in that story,
Break it down for
which I
us.
love. So first of all, I think some of the most successful businesses are businesses that are started to solve a problem. So starting with a real problem, something that is actually you can see that it's causing issues, pain, delay, loss of business, loss of self, loss of community. Start with a problem which you can define, and once you define that problem, honestly, you're halfway there. So your secretary. Her problem was mistakes that she was making. There are a few ways that she could fix that, but she decided to be innovative and to create a product
And using what she knew.
and using what she knew. The second part of it is to raise that idea with the people who are around you. So she obviously went and spoke to her secretarial friends and said, "Would you use this product?" And they said, "Yes, absolutely. We'd much rather use that product than, you know, some
Retyping the
other
entire
change."
page.
Yeah, exactly. And you're throwing away more paper, whatever it happens to be. It's easier for small changes and for small mistakes to be fixed by a very simple thing. The third thing that she did was, and I am guessing here, but I'm guessing that she didn't just go countrywide immediately. She tested out her product with a number of her friends, perhaps made that market a little bit larger. Maybe she went to some other firms to make sure that not only was it something that solved the problem, but it was also something that people wanted. She established her market. I'm going to come back to that because establishing the market is really critical to any new thing. Uh, I think at some point she probably would have thought, well, how can I mass produce this? How can I make it easy to use? There are a whole bunch of other things that flow on from that, but solving a problem, getting feedback from some of your friends, and then testing it in the market, absolutely the first 3 steps that you need.
And would you also agree, as I said again, I've never really studied business, so this I drew this from my own experience. Would you also agree, Stephen, that by managing the growth and managing the scale of your business from the ground up to smaller, probably a little bit bigger and bigger and bigger,
Yep.
without going too fast too soon, helps you not only in learning about your business, but also managing your risks and mistakes, because little mistake is easier to fix
Than a big mistake.
than a big
Absolutely.
mistake.
Yeah. Uh, I think that you're right. I think that for a large number of cases, that is great advice. But I do want to point out that there are some situations where you need to scale and grow as quickly as you possibly can. And those situations are in markets where it's very easy for your competitors to become competitors. And what I mean by that is if you've got a great idea, but it's very simple to implement, you are going to get competitors very quickly.
Okay.
And so being able to scale quickly and lock in paths to market is actually super important for you to maintain leadership in that market.
Uh, my eyes were rolling, not because I in disagreement to that. I was trying to think what would be the example for that. Because the reason why I struggle to find an example is because I'm assuming most of that would be more of a service based or a tech based or an app based. Whereas in my case, I'm very, very lucky, strategically lucky that my technology was patent protected, which
Mm.
probably is the saving grace for in a lot of cases when I mean, we're up against the multi-billion, sometimes even trillion dollars industry when it
Yeah.
comes to
Yep.
supplement, healthcare, and skincare. And I feel that one of the very formidable protection that we have would be the intellectual property protection
Mm.
in the form of patent and trademarks.
Yeah. Uh, and I think that patents and trademarks are very useful when it comes to protecting a brand. But my belief is that the best protection is actually the larger market. So if you can get consumers to see your product as better, or see your product as longer living, or see your product in some positive way, then they're going to stick with you.
So branding and distribution.
All matters. Absolutely. Yeah. We need to build trust with our consumers. We need them to understand what we're doing is truthful and supports a larger community. It's not just about buying something that's on a shelf. It's about buying into the brand and buying into the understanding of what the company is about, not just about what a tablet or one particular supplement might be about. It's about coming on board with the brand.
Okay, so my next question, and again, drawing from my own experience, I feel that there is a very select and few group of people who are entrepreneur and who started their career as an entrepreneur. I feel that,
Mm.
for example, Colonel Sanders
Yep.
didn't even start frying chicken until I can't remember way into his 50s, 40s or 50s or even 60s. There is a lot of examples of people who pivoted from what they used to do. I mean, I think nowadays I think the term is that how do they turn down their day job and change it into focus into their side hustle, right?
It's the $1,000,000 question.
Exactly. And again, similarly, in my case, I didn't start being an entrepreneur. I was already an academic. I was a researcher. I was lecturing at that time.
Mm,
It's just so happened, and lucky me again, that my grandma was the first person who experienced the health benefits of phenolic antioxidants that I extracted and activated naturally from my lab.
mm.
Giving that sample to my grandma helped her to walk again from previously wheelchair bound.
Yep.
And she made me promise her that I would turn this into real tangible products, science on the shelves. And fulfilling that promise, I synthesized that with the ethos and mission of my company, which is
Mm,
Renovatio. In Latin, it means new life, because my grandma wants me to carry this torch in the way that everybody should have a healthier, happier life. I made that pivot and then turned 100% of my attention, left the academic world,
mm.
left all the dream of having a tenure, and investing not only my money but also my time and effort
And your energy.
and my energy. I was about to say that
Yeah.
into building Renovatio from the ground up, and I've been doing
Mm,
that since forever. So in in a lot of ways, I feel that there is a personal motivation and encouragement that started that journey. If someone doesn't have that, if someone just has an idea, but this person is already working, is already establishing a, a decent career,
mhm.
what do you think that they need to? Because I fully believe that unless you put in 100% of your time and effort and energy,
Yeah.
it's very hard for an idea, passion, and interest and hobby to turn into a full time
Mm.
job.
Vincent, I think it depends how attached you are to it. And this is a challenge that a lot of startup uh, leaders and founders have. So, when you have an idea, you might be working on it, as you say, a side hustle or a weekend project.
Yes.
You might have a friend maybe that you've roped into it who's kind of interested as well and might be helping. You might have asked somebody that you know for some assistance or some feedback. You may have even gone out to a bunch of your friends and had a conversation about this particular thing. But if you're still working, you've got a mortgage to pay, you can't just stop and and focus on this what could be an amazing idea. There are actually a bunch of things that are open to you, and not many people actually understand this. Which when I explain this, is you're going to say, of course, but a lot of people don't think about it because you put all of this energy and time and thought into this wonderful idea to get it to what we call an MVP, a minimum viable product. But you don't have to do that. There are a lot of people who are quite comfortable and have done a startup a number of times, but not to the MVP stage. What you do is essentially you write a business plan. You describe your idea, you lay out the steps, and maybe even you identify some of the other companies and other things that you need to do that. And then you package all of that up and then you sell it to somebody. And that's your exit.
This is so crazy because I did none of that steps when I first started Renovatia. And I do think that there is a truth to this saying that the odds of stupid and dumb people succeeding is actually higher because we are not smart enough to think that we could fail.
And nobody should fail.
No, I know that, but I have to say though, if all of this goes away, I would think that knowing all the risk, all of course opportunity and everything,
Mm,
I would probably not have that mindset and that grit to start a business now, knowing what I know.
yeah.
Again, 15 years ago, I fully believe that I could not fail.
Mm.
And I think I jumped into it with 2 feet in and never look back.
See, Vincent, I firmly believe that if you have a market, if you identify that you have a market, if you talk to a few people, as I was saying earlier about your secretary and liquid paper example, talk to a few people and establish that market. If you then dive into that, having established those things, you're going to produce something. You may not take over the world, but if you're willing to pivot, and that is so important, if you're willing to pivot, you're almost certainly going to be successful. I've got three stories for companies that everyone listening to the podcast has heard of, who you probably don't know that Netflix started as a DVD distribution company.
I'm a nerd, so of course I
You know
did.
that? Okay.
Yes.
So they were distributing DVDs and it's a physical product. It's so hard to go global with that. Uh, and so they pivoted. They pivoted to digital. I don't know if you know, and I didn't remember this, but YouTube. YouTube started as
It
a
was a
video-based dating
dating
site.
app. Yes, dating site. It's not even an app. Yes.
Introduce yourself clips is
And
where
they
they started.
actually had to pay people off Craigslist to make videos, and nobody wanted to do that, and
Yeah.
then they pivoted.
Yep, exactly. Shopify, which a lot of e-commerce sites use as their back-end server infrastructure, they started as a snowboarding retailer.
That I didn't know.
I've got
That I
more as
didn't know.
well, and all of the pivot is so important. Microsoft.
Yes.
Okay, so Microsoft they built an Office suite. Uh, they did some other things as well. But when they built their Office suite, they built it for the internal use of Microsoft. And it was only a few years later that they thought, oh, actually, we've got a product here. Let's
Yes.
sell that to everybody. There are
One.
so many examples.
Well, and let me give you one. FedEx.
FedEx,
FedEx
awesome.
was an ice distribution company. And obviously, back in the day, people didn't have freezer to make and store their own ice. So just like milk,
Mm,
the iceman delivered every morning. And when refrigeration technology became ubiquitous and domestic based, what they know, what they had was the distribution network. And
mm,
I mean, you would imagine ice needed to be transported fairly quickly. Otherwise, then
yeah.
it will just be water.
Look,
And they lean into their strength.
exactly. and leaning into your strength and being able to pivot. I think that that's a really strong story and message for any of our listeners who are thinking, even I've got this great idea, or I've run it past a few friends. I think it's possible. Uh, Being open to pivoting even later during the development. I really love that Archie Rose, who are a local distributor of and distillery, Archie Rose during the COVID pandemic started doing hand sanitizers as
Yes.
well, and that pivot satisfied a need, which then ended essentially. So it was even a point in time pivot that allowed them to remain in business.
You'll be proud to know that we also did hand sanitizer.
Ah,
We
yep.
supply one of the biggest hotel in Sydney during that time, and that was a little bit of pivot too because I understand skincare technology, and it's not
Mm,
too different when it comes to creating hand sanitizer. Same concept, different approach because obviously being a distillery, Archie Rose people they know how to create alcohol or ethanol based product
yeah.
and pivot it into this hand sanitizer. So
Yep.
basically, you just gave me a nugget of wisdom here in terms of uh, we need to believe in what we are standing for and the foundation that we have created, but at the same time be nimble enough to
Mm.
make sure that we don't lose opportunity, especially during the time of change.
Exactly. That actually brings me to some advice. Maybe not advice, because this isn't an advice
No, no,
channel.
please do that.
I'm
We
not a
love that,
financial
especially
advisor
because
either.
I do know that we can't. Well, I certainly cannot afford you. You're very expensive. So while I can get this for free, give us the
Go for it.
advice.
Excellent. Well, I think being able to pivot and knowing the value of your product, it requires something very boring. It requires accountancy. So my
Okay, it is
recommendation to
boring.
anyone who's starting a business is understand how you're going to track your business. You need to track your incoming and outgoing. You need to try not to spend too much money, particularly at the early stages. And that needs to be separated from your personal finances as well. Here in Australia, please do not mess up your personal finances with business finances. Even if you're a sole trader, keep the bank account separate. You'll get into all sorts of trouble with the
You
ATO.
need the, and also not only that, you need that protection from, God forbid, touch wood, something happens to the corporation that
Yeah.
you have that shield that separate your personal asset to, from the company's
Yeah,
asset.
exactly, exactly. The next thing that you need to know who your customers are. And this is something that I think when businesses first start out and they're getting all of these orders and the business looks amazing, uh, but you need to know why people are buying. Are they just buying because they're interested, they're going to try it out once, or are they likely to be a repeat purchase? And how do you encourage people to be a repeat purchase?
And how do you take not take advantage, but for lack of a better word, how do you take advantage from their purchasing behavior? So clearly, if you are in a certain type of business, say for example, uh, I don't know, if you run a tourist shop where you know that your customers are only going to be there once,
Yeah,
it doesn't matter how impressive your service and products are. They're not going to travel from Tokyo to Sydney just to buy your product again.
exactly.
They may tell their friends or something, or businesses like us, for example, where my metrics one of my metrics of success is that when people finish their first bottle, they come and buy again and buy again and buy
Mm,
again because that indicates strongly indicating that the products work because otherwise you wouldn't keep buying things that
yeah,
does nothing for you, right?
yeah, absolutely.
So how do you how do you use this information about people's your customers purchasing behavior in tailoring your service or product and company?
So it could be as simple as just collecting that information into a spreadsheet and then looking at the buying patterns that will emerge eventually. But You can always ask your customers. And again, this is something that I think, uh, we're used to receiving emails saying you just had an interaction with, whoever. What was that like? And as long as it's simple, and as long as it's a small number of questions, generally people will be okay to provide some feedback. Please do not ask for people's date of birth and home location or anything that's going to be personally identifiable information. If you get enough responses, it actually doesn't matter if half of them are bots because you get responses from real people at some point and you'll find clusters. The
And that
bots will
tells a
cluster.
story.
It all tells a story. And so having some tools that allow you to do that is really important. As I said, could just be a spreadsheet, but there are a bunch of customer relationship management tools that are free, open source. You can pay for some if you want as well, but they will give you an idea of who is buying, where they are, what they're buying, if they're repeat purchases, which channel works best for you. So you mentioned the trade show, so that is a channel.
Yes.
Your online website is a channel. Uh,
Supermarket.
your supermarkets could be a channel. But also, if you go down to the Roselle markets every Sunday and set up a stall, that's another channel as well.
There is I've always wanted to do that. But, the issue that I think I would have would be I would be more interested in other people's stores, and I would probably spend $100 buying, like, croissant or, like, handmade
It's easier to
candles.
spend $100 buying croissants at
I
Roselle. Yeah.
I know. So, that's probably the reason why I haven't actually been allowed to do that. Um, okay. Well, we need to wrap up very, very soon, but I don't want you to go away without sharing, I don't know, I love a list. I don't care whether it's 3, 5, or even just 1. Um, if you if you go to, say, for example, a high school or a college, uh, talking about entrepreneurship, talking about startup, talking about being a founder,
Mm.
what would be the non-negotiable advice that you will share with people? I don't know, 3, 5, something that can be practical, something that is almost always the case. It doesn't matter what industry or what discipline they are in,
Nice ask. Thanks for the warning.
or like they're all.
um,
I did WhatsApp you last night.
no, yeah, that's true. It is it is amazingly simple, this advice, and I'm going to steal some of it from a one of my favorite artists, Tim Mitchin. Uh, Tim Mitchin gave a speech in Western Australian University 10 or 15 years ago, and paraphrasing his half an hour speech into a single sentence, which he would love, I'm sure, or not really love. Uh, Believe in yourself, but believe in yourself that you can do the thing today. Don't set some massive target in the future. Don't think that you're going to have $1 million or $10 million or $100 million business in 15 years. You might, but unless you get started today and believe in yourself today and start small, you definitely won't. I can guarantee you won't. Even if you win Powerball, you still won't.
You might even lose it.
So write down your idea on a piece of paper with a pen. I know that's going to be hard for some people, but write it down, look at it, rewrite it, believe in yourself, and do one thing that moves that forward. And that is my advice. Because once you get started, things will then snowball from that point.
So one foot in front of another.
One foot in front of another. Do the thing today, finish it, move on to the next thing.
I love that. I love that. I happen to know that speech, by the way.
Mm,
I think it was
mm.
a graduation speech or something.
It was, yeah,
It was, yeah. You can look it up on YouTube.
yeah.
Um, One thing that also came to mind when you say
Mm,
that, start today is, people. There are two types of people: people who say one day and day one. And I hope that us, as well as you who are listening, are in the day one group because it's always very tempting to think about one day I will do this, one day I will
Yeah.
write that book, one day I will start upskilling myself in, I don't know,
One day I'll learn to
speech,
skateboard.
or that would be my one day. But my day one would be things like I'm going to start um, learning accountancy better, for example. I'm going to start practicing, you know, gratitude, because sometimes as a business owner, I can get
Mm,
so wrapped up in terms of all of the negatives and the economy and fuel prices,
mm.
and I'm making a concerted effort every day to say out loud one thing that goes right for
Yeah,
me on that day.
absolutely.
And this goes very, very true as well when it comes to your health and well-being. I know that it's so easy to get wrapped up, and it's so tempting to think that if only I started my health journey last week or last year, or that one day when I turn 40 in 2027, I will have that motivation to change my
When
lifestyle.
I have more time or when I don't have to do this other thing,
Yes,
um, make the time,
make
start.
the time, because in a lot of cases, your health and well-being included right now, it's a perfect time to start it. And on that note, thank you so much for joining us. It means a lot that you are tuning into our chat. This shapes up to be exactly what I thought it would be, because it's just two mates chatting
Yeah,
whilst, sharing wisdom, sharing advice, take it or leave it. But I do think that we can learn from everything, including from this podcast. And if I weren't doing this podcast, I always say this I will be a listener to this podcast. So thank you, Stephen.
thank you very much, Vincent. It's always a pleasure. And anyone who has any feedback, please drop questions to us. We'll answer them in the newsletter as well. Uh,
And we will keep the bartending and mixologies entry column every week.
has that been successful?
It
Has it?
has been really successful. We had a few people commenting that um, they shouldn't, or we shouldn't be doing this because we're a health and wellness podcast and newsletter. But my counter argument is that health is not only physical, but also psychological. And I do think that as long as it is within within the right amount, so moderation,
Moderation.
I think you know having a drink or two, especially when you're having it with mates, it can be a social lubricant. It can help you to open up. And you know what? I do think that in this world of connectivity, we need that interaction. I mean, grab a beer with your mates, have a wine club, have a conversation, and you'll be surprised. You may be enjoying yourself too.
Yeah. Sounds like though I need to add a mocktail to next week. So I might.
No, we don't always have to listen to them. Anyway, we appreciate it. See you guys. Bye.
Thanks, everyone.